The morning began like any other, quiet, still, and filled with the smell of cardamom tea. I woke early, hoping to avoid tension. Living under the same roof with my daughter-in-law, Rania, had turned my days into a battlefield of silent insults and carefully hidden wounds. But today, I wanted peace. I wanted to feel like a mother in my own home, not an intruder walking on eggshells. I walked into the kitchen carrying a bowl of fresh fruit I had washed at dawn. The cold water had numbed my hands, but my heart felt heavy and warm with unspoken pain. Rania stood by the counter, tapping her manicured nails against her phone screen. Her posture alone carried irritation, as if my very presence polluted the air. "Good morning, Beta," I greeted softly, trying to smile. She didn't lift her eyes. Instead, she let out a sharp exhale. "Why do you wake up so early? You ruin the whole vibe of the house. It feels old when you're around." Her words stung, but I swallowed my hurt. This wasn't the first time she tried to make me feel unwelcome, but what came next, nothing had prepared me for it. As I stepped closer to place the fruit on the table, she suddenly spun around, her face twisted in contempt, and spat. Right on my arm, warm, humiliating, a sting that wasn't physical, but emotional, like she scraped my dignity off my skin. For a moment, time froze, my breath caught, my knees trembled. I could hear my heart beat louder than anything else in the room. The shock pressed against my chest like a heavy stone. My eyes burned, but tears refused to fall. They were too proud. Rania smirked as she saw my silence. "Clean that yourself," she said casually, as if she hadn't just spit on a human being, let alone her husband's mother. I wiped my arm quietly with the edge of my dupatta. I didn't look at her. If I did, I knew the hurt would spill out like broken glass. Silence became my shield, not because I was weak, but because I refused to let her see me break. I continued preparing the breakfast table with hands that trembled slightly, but a strange calm settled inside me. Not anger, not hatred, something deeper like a storm gathering in still air. She believed she had won. She believed my silence meant surrender, but I knew my silence was only the beginning. Tomorrow would bring guests, and without speaking a single cruel word, I would let the truth speak for itself. The day Rania spat on me was the day I lost my fear and found my strength. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the moment again, Rania's curled lip, the disgust in her gaze, the warm spit hitting my skin. The humiliation replayed in loops until my chest ached with silent grief. But beneath the pain, something else began to grow. Clarity, a quiet resolve, a voice inside me whispering, "Enough." For years, I had endured her sharp words, her cold expressions, her constant attempts to push me out of the home I helped build. She often convinced my son that I was too sensitive, too dramatic, too old-fashioned, and he, blinded by love, believed her. But the spit that was different. It wasn't just disrespect. It was cruelty. It was an attack on my dignity. And cruelty should never be hidden, not even by silence. The next morning, the house was buzzing with preparation. Guests were expected, important ones. My son's colleagues from work, families with influence, the kind of people Rania desperately wanted to impress. She had spent days perfecting everything: new curtains, expensive dishes, polished floors, color ordinated table settings. To them, she wanted to appear as the perfect wife, the graceful hostess, the woman who had everything under control. But I knew the truth behind the curtains she ironed so carefully, and now I had proof. The night before, with trembling hands, I had quietly saved a small audio recording. The moment she spat on me, her voice, her insults, her cruelty, I hadn't recorded it for revenge or drama. I recorded it because I needed to protect myself, to stop being painted as the villain in her stories. I needed my son to know who I truly was and what she truly was. By morning, Rania's heels clicked across the floor with confidence. She wore a designer dress, her hair pinned perfectly, her makeup flawless. She gave orders to the house staff, shouting if a single fork was out of place. "You," she snapped at me without even looking, "don't talk too much today. You always say weird things in front of guests." I simply nodded. I did not argue. My silence irritated her more than any words could. Because today, she believed she controlled the narrative. She believed she controlled me. She didn't know that everything she had carefully built, her reputation, her performance, her pride, was standing on a foundation of lies. Lies that would soon crumble under the weight of truth. As the clock ticked closer to 10 a.m., my heartbeat steadied, not with fear, but with strength. Today wouldn't be loud. There would be no shouting, no chaos, no revenge fueled by anger. Only truth, calm, sharp, undeniable truth. And truth, when revealed at the right moment, is the sweetest revenge of all. The doorbell rang exactly at 10 a.m., and the house filled with a rush of warm greetings and cheerful smiles. The guests, 4 families, all welled, dressed and polite, stepped inside carrying gifts and boxes of sweets. The air buzzed with excitement, the kind Rainia loved most, attention, admiration, approval. She floated around them like she was born for the spotlight. "Welcome, please come in. Make yourselves at home," she said sweetly, her voice dripping with honey. If anyone had walked in without context, they would have believed she was the kindest daughter-in-law in the world. Meanwhile, I stood near the dining table, quietly arranging the last dish. My hands moved steadily, but inside, my heart thudded like a slow drum. I wasn't nervous, but I wasn't fearless either. I simply felt ready. Rainia's eyes flicked toward me every few minutes, glaring, checking warning. She feared that I might speak too much or laugh too loudly or simply exist in a way that annoyed her. I smiled at her politely. My calmness unsettled her more than anything. After breakfast, everyone gathered in the living room. A soft glow from the morning sun filtered through the curtains, making the room feel warm and golden. Conversations flowed easily, job promotions, children's schools, holiday plans. Everyone seemed relaxed. Then one of the older ladies, Mrs. Farzana, turned to me with kind eyes. "Auntie, you seem unusually quiet today. Are you feeling all right?" Rainia's expression stiffened instantly. I saw her entire body tense. She expected me to lie, to protect her mask, to keep her perfect image polished. For years I had done just that, but not today. I reached into the pocket of my shawl. My fingertips brushed against the phone, the small device holding the truth she had tried so hard to bury. "I'm fine," I said softly, meeting the lady's eyes, "but I want to share something that happened yesterday." Rainia's face drained of color. Her smile collapsed. Panic flickered in her eyes. "Wait," she whispered sharply, stepping forward. But it was too late. I pressed play. The room fell silent instantly. Her voice filled the air. "Don't touch anything. You make the house smell old." Then the sound of her spit, a harsh, sickening slap against skin. My soft gasp, her cold command, "Clean that yourself." The guests froze, stunned. Some covered their mouths. Some exchanged shocked glances. My son stared at the phone as if the world had stopped. Rainier reached out to snatch the phone, but her hands trembled so violently she couldn't even lift them. Her body swayed slightly. Her face turned pale, so pale I worried she might faint. Her perfect mask shattered into 1,000 tiny pieces. Everyone in the room stared at her, not with admiration but disgust, disbelief, disappointment. For the first time, they saw her real face. The face I had lived with every day in silence. And the silence in the room now was louder than any scream she had ever thrown at me. The living room felt heavy with silence. No one moved, no one spoke. The recording ended, but its echo lingered like a storm cloud. Rainia stood frozen in the middle of the room, her face chalk, white, her breath uneven. For a woman who loved attention, this was the kind she could never handle. My son rose slowly from his seat, his eyes wide with disbelief. He turned to her, voice trembling. "Rainia, you spat on my mother." She opened her mouth, but all that came out was a weak breath. No, she twisted it. "I didn't mean." Her voice cracked. Excuses crumbled. The truth had stripped her bare. My son walked toward me, every step heavy. His eyes weren't angry, they were broken. He reached out and took my hand gently, as though trying to make up for years in a single moment. "Amy, I didn't know. I'm so sorry," he whispered. There were tears in his eyes, and for a heartbeat, my own chest tightened. I'd waited so long, too long for him to see what I endured. Across the room, the guests shifted uncomfortably. Some looked away, embarrassed on her behalf. Others looked directly at her with open disgust. One of the women finally spoke, voice sharp with disappointment. "I cannot believe you would treat your mother-in-law like this. This is shameful." Rainia's legs buckled, and she collapsed onto the sofa, her hands shaking violently. She tried to form words, but nothing came out. Her tongue betrayed her the way she had betrayed everyone else. She had always feared losing her image. Now she watched that image burn right in front of her eyes. When the guests finally stood to leave, they approached me. Not her. "Auntie, you have endured too much," one said softly. "You deserve respect." Another added, "We are so sorry you went through this." Their words were gentle, but every syllable hit Rainia like a blow. She sank deeper into the cushions, her dignity evaporating. After they left, silence filled the home again. This time a different silence. Not my silence of fear, not her silence of control, but a silence filled with truth. My son sat beside me, still holding my hand. "Amy, things will change, I promise you." And for the first time in years, I believed him. Rainia lifted her face, blotchy and streaked with tears. I didn't think, I never thought you'd show them." She whispered, her voice trembling. I looked at her calmly. "You thought my silence was weakness," I said softly, "but silence is only weakness when it hides lies. When it protects truth, it becomes strength." She lowered her eyes. She had no defense left, not one. That day, I didn't shout. I didn't insult her back. I didn't demand apologies. The truth had spoken for me. Her own actions had destroyed the mask she spent years polishing. And as I stood and walked to my room, I felt something new: lightness. Freedom, a quiet victory. Revenge didn't come from anger. It came from dignity, from choosing truth over silence, from letting her collapse under the weight of her own cruelty. Sometimes you don't have to destroy someone. You simply let them reveal who they really are, and the world will do the rest.